The Dark Lands Orcs are a tribe of escaped slaves from the Chaos Dwarf industrial machine. Led by Gormok the Armourer, they come with their own faction, vendetta against the dawi zharr, and a number of unique and powerful units. Let's see how they perform in-game in this Dark Lands Orc mod for Total War Warhammer 3. On the campaign side of things, we have just one faction, which is of course called the Dark Land Orcs. The faction is led by Gormok the Dark Armourer, and obviously, given their less than friendly past, Gormok isn't on the best of terms with the nearby Chaos Dwarves, so will be eager to take them out as quickly as possible. As an expert of the Forge, he excels at upgrading his units with scrap, bringing several unique upgrades for a range of units, and earning more scrap per turn to fuel this. Of course, his wars are more likely to contain Darklands units, and all provinces can recruit the new Drake Rider Lords to aid in battle or assault armies, heroes and garrisons on the campaign map. Lastly, his knowledge of armour allows him to better equip all units, granting them increased defence and confidence in their ability to survive whatever the campaign throws at them. His personal hatred for the Chaos Dwarves inspires his personal army to deal more melee damage whenever facing them in combat, and his runic armour spreads its influence to his troops, granting them a small amount of physical resistance. Lastly, his War ability grants massive defense bonuses to all troops, making his army nearly impossible to get rid of during its activation. Moving over to the roster, but first a word from Instant Gaming. If you're watching this video, you're probably into video games, and if you are, you probably hate paying full price for them. Well, with Instant Gaming, you don't need to worry about that anymore. They sell keys for just about any game you could ask for at low prices than you can find them anywhere else. That means everything from new releases like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and Indiana Jones and the Great Circle to older titles like Skyrim or Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, all for the lowest prices you can get. Here's a little tip for you. You know, every time there's a Steam sale and you get an email telling you that like 500 games on your wishlist are on sale, open that bad boy up in a browser, and using the Instant Gaming extension, you can see which discounts are worth picking up and which you can beat with Instant Gaming anytime. Boom, I just saved you millions of dollars which you can now use to buy more games. I won't lie, if you use my link, it does support myself and the channel and help fund videos like this, but there's also something in it for you. If you buy anything using that link, you can also enter monthly giveaways where you can win a game of your choice from anything you can find store-wide. So save money on games, which you can use to buy more games, all the while being in with a chance of winning free games. Nothing more to say, that's a pretty great deal. So one more time, if you want to save yourself some money on games, head on down to the link in the description and check out Instant Gaming for yourself. Thanks to Instant Gaming and you for supporting the channel, and now back to the roster. First up, we of course have the Lords, and we of course start with Gormok the Dark Armourer, the legendary lord of the faction. He's a little worse than Grimgor in the damage department, but is still a pretty powerful frontlines fighter with high attack and armor piercing damage. Add on the fact he has a shield and a massive boost to defense, and he's nearly impossible to take out by pretty much any means. He also has abilities to increase his attack and defense the longer he's battling in melee, buff the attack of nearby allies, and explode around him to clear a path through enemies. The Darklands Warboss is pretty much just Gormok, but a little weaker from both attack and defense. Still very strong melee battlers, they're extremely tough to take down, so can be used more or less the same in melee. They even share the same attack boost and abilities, so will bring tons of value as long as they're fighting. For the heroes, we have the legendary hero Gormok the Harbinger. He's essentially a black orc warboss on a war boar with a bit more damage, so nothing to complain about there. Also has the same attack boost and ability as the Lords, so works well battling alongside allied units. With the high speed and charge, it is best used into cycle charge, but with the strong melee stats, sustained combat would also work great, provided he doesn't get singled out and surrounded. The Dark Land Drake Riders drop attack and a significant amount of armor piercing damage to gain a little defense and a whole lot of HP from Gormok. Honestly, these are a bit of a weird option since the low armor piercing makes the damage drop off in the late game. The upsides are high area damage and leadership sapping, both with an ability and causing terror, so it can do well at shattering enemies before they even land a strike. For the melee infantry, we have the Dark Land Orc Boys. Coming from regular Orc Boys, they have almost double the armor alongside a lot more armor piercing damage at the cost of being a little slower and having a little less defense. As long as they're not going against armor piercing, they should do much better in melee with the increased damage and about the same survivability. If they come across armor piercing, especially at some range damage, they'll fall off a cliff with their lack of shields and low defense, so want to avoid this as much as possible. The Dark Land Orc Biggins, again, coming from regular Orc Biggins, they almost double the armor, but this time gain a lot more defense, dropping a small amount of damage and attack. Add on the shields and they are an incredibly tanky mid-game front line that can hold back pretty much anything. Their damage leaves a lot to be desired, so they'll need help from anything else to take enemies down, but they'll hold the line for a very long time. And lastly, the Dark Land Bulwarks. These are like shielded black orcs, but way better in almost every single way. They have the same high armor and a silver shield alongside improved leadership, melee stats, and a ton more armor piercing damage. They're incredibly hard to take out via any means, but will also deal excellent damage to whatever you put in front of them, with armor piercing and sundering attacks cutting through the toughest of defenses with ease. Yes, they have a very small unit size, but they make up in quality what they lack in quantity. We also have a new ranged unit, the Scrap Shooters. These blow all other greenskin missile units out of the water, and missile damage wise are about the same as Chaos Dwarf blunderbusses, but with a lot more range. They have a great medium range, but do need line of sight, so will need to get an angle to get off clean shots. With their slower speed, this is easier said than done, but targeting large units is a great way to do this without putting them in a difficult position. Outside of their ranged power, they are pretty worthless, so keep them back and out of melee at all times. And lastly, we have the one and only monster, the Dark Land Drake. Pretty much the hero, but without the rider, which causes a serious reduction to every single stat. Still, fast-moving, non-armor piercing monsters with high HP and area damage. The high speed makes them great versus backlines and other less armored targets, but just be careful of the rampage, as they can quickly get out of control and land themselves in some trouble that they can't get out of if you're not careful. We also have 3 regiments of renown. The Breakers of Zharr are Dark Lands Bulwarks. They drop the shield and a good chunk of defense to gain a lot more attack and non-armor piercing damage. Alongside this, they also gain the Bash Everything ability. The Bronzen Bastards are Scrap Shooters and gain hefty boosts to everything ranged alongside some melee damage and a little bit of attack. And the Terror of Gorgoth is a Dark Lands Drake and gains major stat increases across the board, not to mention its size. Now to wrap up with a mod review. This mod obviously is a lot smaller than some of the others I've been covering recently, but what it lacks in size, it more than makes up for it in character. The faction may not have any huge, unique mechanics, but the starting location being right in the middle of the Chaos Dwarf Wastelands gives them a challenging start with plenty of options for early enemies and some pretty varied wars. You have the Chaos Dwarfs to the north, then Vampire Counts, Ogres and Kugath to the east, and finally High Elves to the west. Sure, Grimgor is a little bit further north, but despite the short distance, the two really do have drastically different campaigns. Plus, that proximity to Ghost makes for an easy high tier war trophy, since that lad always has a massively inflated power early on, thanks to all of his zombies. The extra scrap and upgrades made me actually make use of it, which is something I hardly ever do, as normally it always seems impossible to gather enough scrap to fully kit out an army. Speaking of which, the limited roster added does have an impact and give the faction a playstyle that's quite unique to them. Gunpowder Orcs go extremely hard and pair well with their endgame immovable line holders, with the Drakes sprinkled in for a bit of monstrous sauce. I do wish the Drake units all had a lot more armor piercing damage, seems like they were neutered for no real reason, but I respect the decision, and anyway, they're still pretty decent even without it. One thing that does kind of suck about the roster, and that is more to do with the campaign, and that is the cost. These are very expensive units, and whilst that's okay because they are very strong, it does make it extremely difficult to make use of them without being constantly in the red. That's really more of a greenskin faction problem because they earn no money outside of battling, but still, it was a struggle to even get a single army fully loaded. Still, they feel like what they are, halfway between greenskins and chaos dwarves, and if it gives the greenskins a new playstyle other than just running its enemies as hard as possible, it makes for a nice change. Overall, if you've struggled to get into the greenskins due to their battle strategy, then this is a great mod to try and give them a bit more variety. The campaign may not offer a ton of mechanical variety, but the location and opponents make it interesting for a single campaign, and for a mod this small, that's plenty for me. But that's all I have on the Dark Lands Orcs mod for Total War Warhammer 3. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, as well as any other mods you'd like me to take a look at. Like, subscribe, and if you want more Warhammer 3 mod videos, then check out this one all about the many units of the Skaven clans.